This Oklahoma predator caused a nationwide outrage on LGBTQ rights and even got a professor fired, but every part of it was planned for years. Get everything you need to celebrate your pride, including books, magnets, and pins at ProfessorPride.com. If you scroll through social media over the past week, you've likely heard of this predator named Samantha Fulnecky, a 20-year-old college student who spent years meticulously planning everything you've seen for the past week. She submitted a college essay, got a 0 on it, and had the teacher fired because of bomb threats. Samantha manipulated her audience into sending the school. So let's start from the beginning. And that story starts with her mother, Christy Fulnecky. They were an average family with 6 children, including Samantha, living in Springfield City, Missouri. Christy is a self-described public figure, entrepreneur, podcast, and radio host. After just 11 years making weekly podcasts, she now has a whopping 6 total listeners. She also describes herself as a servant leader, provider of hope, defender of the people, and according to her Facebook page, she is very, very proud of her chest. She's so proud, we found that her chest went from this to this, but I'm sure that sudden increase was completely natural. In 1992, she was a proud supporter of Rush Limbaugh for president, a man who was arrested for fraud, proudly racist, homophobic, sexist against women, did not believe in climate change, and to round things out, did not believe that you need consent before having sexual relations with a partner. Later, Christy posted that Rush was the biggest influence on her career for the past 30 years. In 2015, Christy was elected to city council in Springfield. At the time, she claimed to be the only conservative on the city council, even though out of the 9 members at the time, 5 of them were conservatives. So she began her first term in office with a pile of lies. Her main task that first year in office was repealing the city's anti-discrimination ordinance, put in place just 6 months earlier, to protect gay people from discrimination in their jobs, public housing, and city government. Christy was a major reason that ordinance was repealed, and gay people no longer had those protections. After she won that battle, she immediately pushed for the words, "In God We Trust," to be displayed in council chambers, but later failed, because it's against the Constitution. Later in the first year of being in office, 5 out of the 9 city council members, 4 of which were conservatives by the way, found out that Christy was illegally operating a business in Springfield for the past 7 years. So those 5 council members sent a letter to the mayor, and the city spent a total of $96,389.66 hiring an attorney, paying a retired judge to oversee 2 administrative hearings, and investigating the matter. Ultimately, they found she did operate her business illegally for 7 years, and a judge ruled that she was ineligible to hold public office in the city for that reason. But she was never fired from that public office and still proudly claims to be an entrepreneur, even though her business was not registered for 7 years. And keep in mind, her business was being a lawyer. In 2016, she went into a private meeting with 5 other council members and secretly recorded the meeting without their consent. She would later publish that recording to the local news stations, hoping to get those 5 in trouble, but then was promptly investigated for their recording. You should know Oklahoma is a one-party consent state for recordings, so it was technically legal, but ethically very flawed, as even the judge in that case called it unethical of her to record them without their consent. That same year, the other 8 members of the city council, including 4 conservatives, had enough of her drama. All 8 of them, plus the mayor, spearheaded an effort to repeal her from office in a special election, but the voters kept with Christy anyway. In 2017, 2 judges put tax liens on Christy for failing to pay taxes to the federal government, which we can only suppose came from this illegal business she was running for the past 7 years. That same year, she ran for mayor of Springfield, but the voters finally had enough of her too and voted against her. The following year, in 2018, she peacefully resigned from city council, but only because she was moving outside the city limits with her 6 children, including Samantha. In any other case, this is where the story would have ended for the family's 15 minutes of fame. But Christy, Samantha's mother, is also an attorney and seems to not believe the COVID-19 pandemic was a real threat to people's lives. In 2020, there was a real estate agent named Samantha Cherry who was offered a free virtual visit with a doctor for her child who was sick at the time. The hospital offered free virtual visits with doctors in a time when doctors were more in demand than ever before, as long as you simply use the promo code COVID to access the video call. It was an attempt to keep people at home rather than coming to the hospital where they might get infected. So the mother was literally getting free healthcare. But using her own private practice, Christy helped her sue the hospital anyway, because the coupon code they used to get the free doctor visit implied COVID-19 was real. For the record, 7,102,566 people have died from COVID-19, and I suspect many of them thought COVID-19 was real in the last days of their lives. Luckily, the jury sided with the hospital in that case, but it took 2 years in court, and as of this taping, we cannot find any evidence that Christy or her client had to repay the hospital for legal fees incurred throughout the case. I guess it serves as a message to all other hospitals not to do anything for free in the future. But Christy was far from done. After the convicted felon Donald Trump committed treason on the United States and worked with Charlie Kirk and his organization Turning Point USA to finance the insurrection on our Capitol on January 6, 2021, Christy was on the forefront of the legal cases. In fact, she defended 2 of the January 6 rioters. One was named Christopher Joseph Quaglin of New Jersey, who reportedly attacked Capitol police officers and was sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2024. The other was Jared Owens of Missouri, who was charged with felony offenses including obstruction of law enforcement and assault on law enforcement with a deadly and dangerous weapon. Just so we're clear, a lawyer from Missouri defended 2 insurrectionists in New Jersey and Missouri who assaulted police officers with deadly weapons in Washington, D.C. In fact, across her social media, Christy has posted dozens of times supporting police and saying that she backs the blue. These posts start popping up in August 2016 all the way to May 2021 when they suddenly stop. Funny enough, right around the same time that she stopped supporting the police on her page, she started representing the first of the January 6 rioters who assaulted police officers. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? Also on January 6th, she proudly posted, quote, "Happy Insurrection Day" on her social media. And in 2022, she posted how horrified she was at the Uvalde Elementary School shooting, where 21 people died, many of whom were children, but yet she keeps posting how AR-15 rifles are weapons meant for civilian use, even though it's the same exact gun used in the Uvalde shooting. Across her social media, you'll notice she references that Nazis were the ones to ban books and education, but somewhere around the same time, she also joined the terrorist group Moms for Liberty. That group is well known for opposing any LGBTQ or racially inclusive education in schools, advocated book bans across the country, and opposes any regulations to help stop the spread of COVID-19. So yes, Christy, it was the Nazis who banned books and education, and your group bans books and education, so are you trying to tell us something? In 2023, her daughter Samantha went to college at the University of Oklahoma. That university just happens to have a Turning Point USA chapter, an organization her mother worked with many times before in all of those lawsuits we mentioned a moment ago. You should also know the University of Oklahoma has a GSA club in its school, and also had an LGBTQ pride float in last year's parade that was cheered on by the students. So it's not all of the students that are bigoted, it's literally just this one. Samantha majored in psychology, which requires students to take a level 2000 class in their second year of being a student. But her second year would have been in 2024, last year. So according to the university, and this is important here, Samantha took that class and passed it last year. So why take the course again? Well, that's because her family saw it as an opportunity to get another 15 minutes of fame. As part of that course, all students are required to write a 650-word essay on this scientific study called Relations Among Gender Typicality, Peer Relations, and Mental Health During Early Adolescence. I'll leave a link to the full article below so you can read it entirely, but basically it deals with bullying. The study argues that the more masculine a boy is, the more popular they get in school, and the more feminine a girl is, the more popular she gets too. Basically, football jocks and cheerleaders get popular, while the drama kids and nerds get bullied. It also argues that in order to get that popularity, the masculine boys have to bully non-masculine boys to obtain their standing in the social hierarchy of the school. It's a lesson psychology students have to go through to teach them how social situations might affect the mental health of children they deal with someday in the real world. And the assignment requires students to quote sources and other scientific studies to show an understanding of the lesson. For the record, it has nothing to do with being transgender and nowhere even mentions gender identity. It's literally a study all about bullying. You should also know that the university has many college professors teaching this same exact course, one of which Samantha likely dealt with last year when she was required to take it as a sophomore. But it's no coincidence that this year, Samantha chose to take the course again with a professor that just so happens to be transgender. Samantha claims she had no idea the professor was transgender and even uses the wrong pronouns to address the professor in her statements. Well, even if that's true, which I highly doubt by the way, everyone directing Samantha on what to do knew the professor was trans. In the bio for this professor, named Mel Kurth, she uses she/they pronouns, so it's pretty obvious which professor is trans. How do we know this? Well, Turning Point USA posted this professor's full name and bio on their Twitter page in November 2025. Samantha then turned in her paper to the professor, but remember, the assignment was to write a 650-word report on the findings of the study, in which students also had to cite other scientific studies to show they understand the material. But this is the actual essay Samantha turned in. You can pause the video to read it for yourself, but we'll also leave a link to it below in its entirety. For the record, it's just 457 words, far shy of the 650 words required in the assignment. It's just one paragraph instead of separate points, and it does not cite any other scientific study. It only references the Bible, which, by the way, Samantha misquoted in her essay. Throughout the essay, any Word document program Samantha used would have pointed out that there are many grammar errors and misspellings. You'll also notice many contradictions in her own points. After many language teachers saw this, they commented how Samantha's writing would have failed a middle school English class, let alone a college-level psychology course. Because Samantha did not do the assignment and misquoted her only source, the professor gave her a 0 on the assignment. She even wrote a note to Samantha stating, quote, "Please note that I am not deducting points because you have certain beliefs, but instead I am deducting points for you posting a reaction paper that does not answer the questions for this assignment, contradicts itself, heavily uses personal ideology over empirical evidence in a scientific class, and is at times offensive." Immediately after Samantha got this score, she emailed the university, and they responded within the hour, saying this essay would not affect her grade at all. Maybe because she already passed that course last year and didn't need the credit anyway, and her religious beliefs would be protected at the university as they have always done before. So how do we know that religious beliefs are protected at the University of Oklahoma? Well, first off, it's Oklahoma, where religion is more important than literally anything else, and over 1,627 churches are in the same exact city as this university. You should also know the university then sent Samantha's essay to another psychology professor, who was told to grade it without any bias of the incoming news stories. That other professor, who is not transgender, gave it the same exact score of 0, because again, she did not do the assignment. But that didn't stop Samantha and her mother from turning it into the worst crime imaginable. They went on Fox News, Turning Point USA, Moms for Liberty, and countless other right-wing news shows to portray this as a crime against Samantha's freedom of religion. Shortly after that manufactured crisis caught national and even international attention, bomb threats and death threats started pouring into the university, and to the trans professor who literally only did her job. Soon, the professor Samantha chose to target, Mel Kurth, was fired from the university. Keep in mind, the university had 2 professors grade this paper, who both agreed with the score, but still Mel was fired. The other professor who gave Samantha the same exact score is still with the university. That means now Mel Kurth has a rightful claim to a lawsuit for firing her without cause, and I hope she takes that case. And Samantha is weighing her options on whether or not she will sue the school for religious discrimination. But seeing that her mother is a lawyer who went to court for much dumber things in the past, that's likely something the school knew might happen, and was why she got a response within the hour. Even though this lawsuit from Samantha will likely fail, it will cost the university thousands to defend against anyway. So what does Samantha's mom think of all this? Well, Christy says, quote, "I think this is something that God wanted for her to stand for. The negative comments really don't bother us. God's protecting us." Yes, because historically, God has always been on the side of trying to get teachers fired who try to help psychology students help kids through bullying. Even by some of the news shows Samantha has been on over the past few days, she's claiming how shocked she is that this story got so much attention. She maintains the notion that she wasn't looking for any publicity and was only looking for help trying to appeal her grade. Well, Samantha, the university already told you this would not affect your grade in any way, so there's no need to appeal it. You already appealed it. You already won an hour later. And if you're not looking for any publicity, why keep posting this to social media after the school already answered your question? Why keep going on news shows claiming you were persecuted for your religion when you conveniently leave out the facts that you did not do the assignment? The university double-checked your score and then told you the score wouldn't affect you anyway. It's odd how she doesn't want any publicity, but then leaves all of those facts out of her narrative every time she walks in front of a camera. It's also odd how she reportedly did a photo shoot financed by Turning Point USA the day after she got her grade. It's almost like they planned this for years and knew a bunch of publicity was coming, so she better look good in the photographs. You should also know that the governor of Oklahoma has already awarded Samantha for her bravery standing up for religious freedoms in Oklahoma, but has not commented on the firing of the professor yet. Multiple reports came in after this incident where Turning Point USA wanted the school on lockdown and for some reason got their wish, so that students had to stay in their dorm rooms rather than going into the hallways of their dorms, which is just insane that an organization can just come in and tell a university to lock down their students for no reason. If all of this sounds like a broken record of Republicans being snowflakes and claiming to be persecuted after manufacturing their own situation and raking in millions of dollars from the outrage, it's because you've seen all of this before many times. It's the same exact thing that happened in March 2022 when Riley Gaines was in a swimming competition at the NCAA Championship and competed against a transgender swimmer named Leah Thomas. In that race, Riley and Leah both got the same exact time, meaning they tied for 5th place. But that didn't stop Riley from going on every right-wing news show to make Leah out to be a villain, saying she should have been 5th place instead of being 5th place. Riley made a career out of that day, and her net worth has since rose to over $2 million from speaking fees, revenue from social media, and running her own institute teaching people how to be assholes. So this machine is very controlled and predictable. At least in Riley's case, her competitor is transgender. Her case still makes no sense, but it makes more sense than Samantha's essay, where she literally did not do the assignment, then wanted a perfect score. In this case, it appears Samantha's mother, Christy, has been looking for a way to become famous for being an asshole for decades. In her own words, she claims Rush Limbaugh has been a great inspiration for her career, and she's not really wrong here. She orchestrated the entire situation where her daughter took a class, most likely for a second time, with a trans professor, just so she can write a children's essay and fail on purpose, so she can turn the rage machine against a trans professor. At this point, it's like a big machine these far-right predators turn on. They manufacture every part of a situation, share it with their audience as if they are being persecuted, and every part of it is a lie. You might say no harm was done here because the university gave Samantha a pass on the assignment, but the professor was fired. The professor and the university were sent bomb threats and death threats and will continue to receive them for years into the future. This will cost them tens of thousands of dollars to defend lawsuits and security for years to come. Meanwhile, student tuition rises dramatically. This means even less students can afford to go to college, and Moms for Liberty get their wet dream of the country not being properly educated. Samantha, her mother, Turning Point USA, and Moms for Liberty don't have any consequences for orchestrating this entire situation. Employers across the country are also blacklisting the University of Oklahoma this year because of this situation, thinking that if they're willing to give Samantha Fulnecky a pass on this grade, then maybe they've given passes to other people who have actually worked hard for their degrees. So seniors this year are having a hard time getting jobs, and students across the university are considering a class action lawsuit against the university, since after college it's going to be very hard to find a job now, thanks to this one situation. When Republicans turn on this rage machine and only share half of the story, I don't really blame their fans for being filled with rage. That's how the machine is designed. People like Christie spend half of their day planning these situations, so Republicans will give them 15 minutes of fame, and for Christie, apparently the other half of her day is spent filling her chest with silicone. But even for Republicans, this one is a stretch of the imagination. What kind of mental hoops must you go through to believe this narrative? A university surrounded by 1,600 churches in a city where more than 72% of the population considers themselves highly religious, 70% of which are Christian, by the way, in a state that just mandated Trump Bibles to be in all elementary school classrooms, a university which knew her mother was a lawyer who loves frivolous lawsuits, especially lawsuits persecuting others on having any other religious belief beyond her own, would seriously discriminate against Samantha on a religious basis. Or is it way more likely that Samantha just didn't do the assignment and failed? I'm so sick of this same rage machine being turned on over and over again. The people calling us snowflakes are the same ones raging over these manufactured problems over and over. Time and again in court, they lose and rage again because they were only ever told half the story that fit that narrative. So genuinely, do Republicans ever stop and have a thought to themselves? Do they ever realize they're the snowflakes getting upset about religious persecution in Oklahoma? Or is it just they're too stupid to realize they're in for one hell of a wake-up call when someone else takes power and gives them consequences for their actions for the first times in their lives? Get everything you need to celebrate your pride and support our show at ProfessorPride.com. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click on this video to continue enjoying Powered by Rainbows.